Welcome back. This week we will be talking about how to develop a quality collection using reliable selection tools and criteria that can be used for both selection and deselection. Collection development includes selecting and deselecting resources in order to develop a collection that fits the needs of the community and curriculum, is well balanced, provides opportunities for members of the community to learn and create, and consists of quality resources that are easy to find. The elements of collection development include the criteria used in that process, as well as the tools available to assist you in that process. This is the fun part of collection management. You get to spend someone else's money, and who doesn't enjoy doing that? Several elements that inform the process of collection development are found under the umbrella of the collection management policy. These elements include who is responsible for making the collection development decisions, the types of materials that the library will or will not include in their collection, the depth and breadth of the collection, and the viewpoint or purpose of the collection. The school board usually delegates responsibility for deciding what materials are added or taken out of the collection to the library media specialist. Decisions about expensive resources, such as subscribing to databases or purchasing electronic devices, are often made collaboratively by representatives from multiple libraries or multiple departments who will then share the resources. Of course, the LMS will consult with teachers and administrators as collection development corresponds with curriculum development. Input from students and parents is also important, but the final decision should be the librarians, as they know the community, curriculum, and collection, the principles and values of the profession of librarianship, and the criteria used for evaluating resources. The collection management policy should also be clear about the types of resources that will be purchased. Formats included should be accessible to the students and helpful for supporting the learning and creating activities of the students and teachers. The collection management policy should indicate whether devices for accessing and using electronic resources will be purchased as well. Consideration should be made of the ability of the library media specialist and the school to provide technological support for the use and upkeep of these devices as well as the software. There's no point in getting devices into your library that neither the librarian nor IT staff can use or troubleshoot. As mentioned previously, the library should provide a balanced collection that gives access to multiple points of view on a wide range of topics. Resources should meet the educational as well as interest needs of the students. Since the library cannot possibly collect every resource available, the collection management policy should indicate the depth and breadth of coverage. This will include the appropriate age, grade, and reading levels. If some areas are covered more in depth than others because of the focus of the school, for instance, an art school or a science school, if foreign language resources are selected, and if formats to support a variety of learning styles will be selected. There are many tools available for a library media specialist to use to find resources to add to the collection, and I would steer away from publishers' catalogs and publishers' websites because they're trying to sell you something and are not likely to give you a less biased perspective of the resource. As with analyzing communities or collections, use a variety of resources to develop the collection. In the library guide on the Find Collection Development Readings tab, I have included lists of selection aids, many of which Kimmel has included in developing collections to empower learners. So I'm going to actually go off my slides and show you how to get to the library guide. So this is the Canvas course page, and you'll notice on the left-hand side there is a link to the modules. Hopefully that's how you're navigating through this course. Under Start Here at the very top, there is your Text and Resources module. This is where all of the information about the texts and resources that I expect you to know how to get to and to use are. So we've got a list of required textbooks, suggested textbooks, and then other resources. The first link under other resources is Organizing and Managing Library Collections Library Guide. That's the library guide that I'm referring to whenever I refer to the library guide in this course. So you just need to click on that to get to it. And I would suggest that you bookmark this so that you don't have to go through all those steps. You can just go to your book favorites list and click on this bookmark and get right to the library guide. And you'll notice that there's these tabs up at the top here. Find Collection Development Readings is right there. And if we click on that, we will have a box for a list of readings, which you will need to select from, and the selection aids. And this selection aids box is what I'm referring to in regard to the tools that I've listed there. Okay? All right. So one category of tools is the recommended titles list. In addition to a summary of the resource, they usually include the age, grade, and reading level for each title listed, and they're often organized by or indexed by subject to make finding the appropriate resource easier. Librarians who are familiar with children and their developmental stages and needs compile these lists, eliminating the pressure and bias of a publisher trying to sell a product. Additionally, some of the resources listed on the slide are available in both print as well as searchable databases. Those are the ones with the asterisk in front of them. These lists are also very useful when you do collection analysis, even if they might not provide information about the most current resources available. So I will give you 10 points of extra credit if you send me an email telling me what the Library of Congress classification number is for selection tools for children's resources, and that is on the library guide. A more current resource for title recommendations is periodicals that publish reviews of children's books, films, movies, apps, and more. Many of these are also available electronically or are indexed in databases which you can search if you're considering purchasing a specific title and want to know if it will meet your need. And let's not forget the American Library Association's Association for Library Service to Children's lists of award-winning children's books and media. These award lists include the Caldecott and Newbery Award, among others. The Coretta Scott King Award is given by ALA's Ethnic and Multicultural Information Exchange Roundtable. Links to these journals and award sites are included in the selection aids box in the library guide. And there is a link on this slide as well. There is no shortage of tools available to help library media specialists write policies, evaluate and map their collections, select resources for the collection, and read the collection. This slide includes a couple of internet sites that provide valuable information for your collection development needs. These are also included in the library guide. And don't forget to field requests from teachers and students. The best resources for the school library are resources that will be used, and they know what they want and need. The tools I've just shared with you are great places to find out about resources that you may want to add to your collection. But how do you determine if the books a parent just donated should be added to your collection? What if you overheard someone mention a website and you wondered if you should add a link to it to the library's webpage? Let's talk about some basic criteria that you can use to evaluate any resource to determine if it's a trustworthy and reliable resource. This acronym should be fairly easy to remember. CRAAP, CRAP. So C stands for currency and refers to the age of the resource. In some cases, a 10-year-old book might be just fine. So I'm not saying that if a resource is a certain number of years old, it should be deselected or not added. Resources such as literary classics or autobiographies don't lose a lot of value just because of their age, as long as they are in good condition. In other areas, however, such as science or computers, and especially when you are considering software or electronic devices, you would want the most current information or iteration. When a resource was published or created is an important factor to consider before adding it to the collection. R stands for relevance, and it has to do with the community you serve. Is the resource age or reading level appropriate? Will the students have the equipment to be able to use the resource? Will they know how to use that equipment, or will you need another library staff person to assist them? Does the resource serve the educational or interest needs of your students and teachers? There's no point in taking valuable library space for a resource that has little relevance to your students and teachers. A is for authority and refers to the credentials of the writer or creator. Also the publisher. Purchasing materials from credible publishers helps to ensure that the information in the resources that you're adding to the collection is reliable and trustworthy. This is a very important criteria to use to ascertain whether a website has been put up by someone wanting to post false information about a topic or someone who is an expert in the topic area. Vanity publishers, I would recommend you steer away from, because anybody can publish a book through a vanity publisher, and there's nobody there to vet that resource from in terms of its accuracy, authority, or even the quality of the writing. And I've seen some really awful vanity press resources. There's good ones out there, but it's a mixed bag. A stands for accuracy and is very similar to authority. You want to know that the resources in your library are providing accurate facts. Again, purchasing from a reliable publisher and investigating the source of information on the internet helps to ensure the accuracy of the information to which the library is providing access. Finally, P stands for purpose, and it's important to consider the purpose of the resource. Often this won't preclude you from purchasing the resource, but it will help you provide a depth to the collection that you might not otherwise get. For instance, a second grade teacher might be teaching a unit on butterflies, in addition to including books about the life cycle of the butterfly in the appropriate age and reading levels. Art books or picture books that include pictures of butterflies or artwork with butterflies would supplement and enhance the scientific books. And perhaps you might also want to include a time-lapse video that shows the development of the caterpillar as it spins the cocoon and then hatches into a butterfly. All of these different resources are about the butterfly, but they each provide a different perspective and different way of learning about it, and a depth to your collection that users will really benefit from. Keep in mind that all information is presented with a bias. This is neither good nor bad, but it is important to remember when selecting resources. Some websites that are intended to sell a product often have very valuable information about a topic that your students might benefit from. As long as you're aware of the bias, you and your students can make an informed decision about whether or not to use the information provided, or even how to use that information. Of course, supporting the curriculum and community come into play when considering a resource. You will also want to consider things such as cost and language in making sure you have a balanced collection, as mentioned before, that intellectual freedom is preserved. Be aware of your biases so that you aren't unintentionally self-censoring. Remember this simple acronym will help you decide whether a resource should be included in your library collection and will help keep self-censoring at bay. While purchasing materials for the collection is often considered the fun part of collection development, weeding or deselection is sometimes dreaded and too often ignored. Librarians are sometimes loath to get rid of books and other resources, but if the benefit to the user and the collection are considered, the wise librarian will remember that the library collection is a growing organism, and weeding is just as important to the health of a collection as it is to the health and growth of the remaining plants in a garden. The same CRAP criteria that guides the selection of a resource should also guide the deselection of a resource. What may have been a good resource 10 years ago, because of changes in the curriculum, community, or collection, may not be a good resource today. And I hope you're starting to see how all of these different elements of learning about your community and your curriculum and collection, the criteria used for selection, the tools used are coming together. 3 other factors should be considered when deciding whether or not to retain a resource. They are the condition, the use, and the space. So hopefully you can see in the picture in this slide the condition of the books. And these books are currently in Waterfield's collection. The selection librarian has been asked to make decisions about whether to keep them, repair them, or just withdraw them. But when resources like this are in such disrepair, users are likely to not only not want to use that book, but they will get a really negative impression of the collection as a whole if these books stay in the collection in this condition. If many of the resources in your collection look old and in really poor condition, that is how the collection will be characterized, no matter how many new books you get in. Sometimes your resources are in poor condition because they are highly used. Consider whether it's worth your time to repair the resource or simply replace it. However, often a newer edition or work is available and would be a better choice for the collection than to simply replace the one that you're deselecting. Although it may be tempting to keep a resource that fits all the criteria for your library but has low or no use, in the off chance that someone might find it useful someday, bear in mind that each resource has a cost to keeping it on the shelf. They take up valuable space that a more highly used resource could have. They crowd out other resources. The time it takes to read the shelves to keep them in order is impacted by the number of resources on the shelf. Unless you're in the process of building a new collection, studies show that weeding out unused or lower used resources is often a way to generate more use of the resources that remain. When you're looking at collection statistics, keep in mind the last date of circulation and when the resource was acquired. A resource that has a high circulation count but was last checked out 5 years ago indicates that its usefulness may have passed. At the same time, a resource might have a low circulation rate but was only added to the collection 6 months ago. That resource should be given more time to establish its usefulness. Finally, lack of space will force a library media specialist to have to make deselection decisions. It could be the case that all the resources in the collection fit the CRAP criteria, but there's not enough space on the shelves to keep all of them. So target those in poor condition and those with low relative usage first. If you still need to make space, check to see if one topic has more resources than another that may benefit from culling. Publication date is often a simple way of determining what stays and what goes. People really do prefer to use newer resources. This slide lists the criteria that is specific to non-print resources. So all that other criteria, the CRAP criteria, can be used on any resources in the library, but these are specific to non-print. The links on the library's website should be checked periodically to determine whether or not they're still working. Likewise, if your catalog contains links to resources, those links need to also be checked on a regular basis. It is possible that the resource is still available and the link just needs to be updated. But sometimes the resource is no longer available and those links should be deleted. Of course, if you have audiovisual resources, you'll want to make sure that you have the equipment to play the format. There's no point in keeping resources that can no longer be used because the equipment's not available. Even if the library still has a cassette player, students might not be interested in using old technology, so paying attention to usage statistics is important with these types of resources. Finally, keep track of usage statistics for links on the library's website. As with books, unused links crowd out the other used links and should be removed. There's an acronym for weeding criteria. I'm not as much a fan of it as I am of the CRAP criteria, but it does cover many of the same criteria that is in CRAP. It's just worded a little differently. You can see on this page it's MUSTY and what those letters stand for. There's a link to a brochure in the library guide on the Readings for Collection Development tab at the top of the Readings box that includes this acronym, along with some really helpful information about weeding, including suggested date markers for different call number ranges, suggested resources to keep, a weeding procedure, and more. So that's a really valuable resource. I would recommend that you click on that link and download the brochure for your use. All right, that is information about selection tools and criteria for selection. I hope that this helps to answer a lot of your questions about how librarians select resources, how they find resources, and your assignment will get you into some of those selection tools and discovering how to find resources. So I will see you next time.